What are the most common parts that are replaced on an air conditioning system? Today, I want to talk to you about what the most common parts are that fail on air conditioning systems. If you own an air conditioning system, then the chances are you're going to have to repair it at some time unless you have a perfect maintenance record and the system never has a malfunction, which honestly, that really is very, very uncommon because maintenance isn't practiced as much as it should be. And if you want to learn more about what you should do to maintenance your system, check out Tips for Technicians. I've got a video on how to service and clean. But today we're in the parts room. I've got a various few parts here behind me, and I want to talk to you about each one, why it fails, what you can expect to pay on each part here, what you can do to check those parts. If you're a technician, you want to watch this because you want to know what you should be stocking your vehicle, your service van, or your service truck with so that you can have these parts available for your customers. If you are a customer or a homeowner, you might want to become familiar with what parts are the common failure points in air conditioning systems so that you can be better aware of what you might pay for one of these. So let's get started with today's video. I'm Tad. This is Tips for Technicians and, well, tips for homeowners as well. Let's go ahead and look at the first part and then I'll talk about it. The camera around here and I'm going to talk to you about the first part. So, first part I want to talk about is capacitors, okay? And if you want to learn more about checking capacitors and how to actually tell if one's bad, look at my video on capacitors. It's under Tips for Technicians, and I use a multimeter to check microfarads. So this right here is a capacitor, and it's a run capacitor. What it does, it helps the motor run. And when it goes bad, the top right here, where it's flat, this flat surface, it basically explodes outward and it becomes rounded, and that's an actual obvious observation point that you can look for to be able to figure out if it's bad right there in the field. So this right here, the parts range in price from 10 or 20 bucks to upwards of $100. Depends on the capacitor. This is a run capacitor. This is a start capacitor. And this right here helps the actual compressor to start, and it's used on various compressors, and it's various microfarad. This one right here, let's see, it's 324 to 356 microfarad right there. And if you want to learn more about checking those, look at my other videos. But that is first part that I would mention that is the most common that fails in air conditioning systems. Why does this fail? It fails because of excessive heat, amp draw, and vibration. So if you have an outdoor coil, your coils are not clean, your fan motor's old, the bearings are going out, that's going to drain the juice and cause this capacitor to fail. Right here is the next part. We're going to talk about the contactor. Contactors fail because of the contacts, because of a short, the coil, or the actual armature fails up here. You can actually take a look at the contacts by taking these two screws out. Some of them have a cover, some of them don't. Take the cover off and you look and there's a plunger. If you want to know more about this contactor and the way it works, check out my other videos. I've got a video on contactors. You can look at Tips for Technicians for that information. This right here, it handles loads like fan motor and compressor. You have line voltage going in, line voltage going out, and you have 24-volt coil that actuates on this one because this is a residential contactor. Basically, it's 240 volts, 120 volts. This right here is a very common failure. What you'll have happen is you'll have ants get inside the contacts, stop it up. You'll have carbon build up on the contacts, which keeps the voltage from spreading from one side to the other. You can also have a contactor that gets shorted on the coil, so it blows a fuse every time that you have a fuse. Well, you have a fuse blow, it could be the contactor. So you take and isolate this, put your fuse back in, see if it works, but that's common issues with this. Also, it can stay closed because of carbon buildup. So you'll have your fan, your compressor running constantly. You're like, what's going on? My fan's not even blowing, my system's off, but my unit's running. Could be a contactor. So this right here is a little relay, and this is used for usually fan motors. It handles a little bit less amps than the contactor does, and it's basically, it's a relay. It's got normally open, normally closed contacts, and what you can have happen with this is you can just have the contact stick. So you can have a fan motor running all the time, okay? We also want to look at control boards. Control boards have an LED usually, and they have a list, a little sheet that tells you the codes. Code number 1 means this, code number 2 means this. Sometimes these boards go bad. What you can look for is you can actually look for burn marks on the board. You can actually look on the back, especially where the relays are, where that high voltage is making connection, and you'll usually have a burn mark on your board. Now, I talked about a few parts here. These are very, very common. We're going to talk about price, 10 or 20 bucks, all the way up to 100, depends on microfarad there. Also depends on the company you're buying from, but a normal service call, probably 150, 200 bucks. This right here, contactor, usually $20 or $30 for a contactor. Some contactors are more expensive, especially if they're 3-pole. Depends on all the ratings and all that, but relay contactor, you know, 10 to 30 bucks, depends on who you're buying it from, and then normal service calls 100, 150 bucks. If you got a board could cost anywhere from 150 to $300, depends on residential, commercial, but normal service call for this is, you know, $300 or $400 for something like that, but it depends on the board. Then again, depends on the board. Let's look at a couple more parts. I want to show you this. This is a hard start kit. These range from, you know, 40 to 50 bucks, and this right here can be put in place of the hard start kit. Okay, if you have a hard start kit, you can wire this in, take the hard start out of it. This has a potential relay on top. Okay, potential relays, I can show you one of those, but I don't think you need to see that in today's video. You want to see that in specific, let me know. I can do videos on whatever you guys want to know. You technicians, if you're a homeowner, you want to know about more about your air conditioning system, I've got videos explaining how it works, and also just different tips to help you save money on your electric bill. Let's look at another common part right here. And this right here is going to be our thermostat. Of course, that's actually not the thermostats that I really recommend. I recommend the Honeywell T4. I like Honeywell. And this right here is a very common failure point. What you can have is, over time, you can have contacts that don't make in the thermostat. If you have batteries, you can have battery corrosion. If you're changing batteries, you need to make sure you check your thermostat every year. Maybe just replace those batteries at least, or just check the contacts where you put the batteries in, because it can corrode, and that's a very common failure point. With thermostats, you can have a short. You can actually have your thermostat not outputting voltage. Usually 24 volts is what you are going to find with your control voltage wiring. I want to put that up real quick. If you have any questions in specific, then let me know, and I can answer those questions for you guys. Another common part in the actual field, which there's several different types of fan motors, but fan motors, fan bearings can go out. How do you check your fan? You basically take the shaft and you move it back and forth. Not up and down, but back and forth, and you turn it. If it's got rough spots in it, bearings are probably going bad, you need to replace it. If it's making a really loud noise, it could be that your fan bearings are going out, and that's the actual sign for you there. Then you've got shorted, burnt windings. Definitely make sure you clean your unit. If you don't know how, check out my videos, how to clean your unit. I've got that on Tips for Technicians. Also, I think I've got a video on tips for homeowners. I think that's about it, guys. I think that's about it. I've got a various amount of parts here, and I stock my truck, my service truck, with at least 2 of each. That way, if I'm running 8 or 10 calls during the day, then I've got at least 2, so I don't have to run back to the shop as often to go in the parts room and be able to restock my van or my service truck. So definitely keep that in mind. If you get a contactor, get 2 or 3. If you're a homeowner, clean your unit. Make sure you get a good service guy that when he comes out to do a cleaning, he checks all the microfarads on the capacitor, and that will save you a lot of headache down the road. It's much easier to replace something like this or something like this than to replace your compressor or replace your fan motors. And sometimes this right here can cause that larger mechanical device to fail. So do the maintenance and you won't be sorry. This is Tad reminding you to maintenance your equipment and take care of it, because, well, like I said, it's much easier to replace a little bitty part. But if you want to learn any more, if you're a homeowner, check out my playlist, Tips for Homeowners. If you got any specific questions, let me know. If you're a technician and you want to learn more, check out Tips for Technicians. I make these videos so that you can be more prepared in the field for that problem. I make these videos so that you can save money on your electric bill. This is Tad reminding you, don't forget to do the maintenance, and I'll keep you cool if you let me. Thanks for watching, guys.